My biggest fear was like be alone or on my own.
Yeah.
But like when I really think about it, I'm like, who's better than getting you out of this than you?
True.
Like,
Exactly.
if I'm gonna depend on anyone, let's friggin' Tish.
That's how I feel.
Oh, here we are.
Here we are.
This is a very exciting Sorry We're Stoned episode.
I know. This is our first vodcast guest that isn't a friend of mine.
That is
Oh, wow.
very
Like
true.
just a homie, you know?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll be your friend now.
Yeah, exactly. But you're like our like first official like real guest.
Oh, I
Like,
feel honored.
professional.
We were like, we need to get a few under our belt and like
Okay.
really kind of be somewhat professional before we have you on.
Exactly. But we've talked about having somebody on that's an expert in astrology for a long time. So this is definitely something we've been wanting to do. So before we get started, I have like a professional bio intro I'm going to read about you.
Okay.
And then anything I leave out or you want to add, you can add in.
Okay.
But stoners, please welcome Jill Wintersteen to the podcast. She's a spiritual teacher, author, yogi, and founder based in Venice Beach, California. In 2016, she founded the popular astrology and wellness brand Spirit Daughter after noticing a growing need for practical, reliable information on current astrological events. With over 2 million Instagram followers, Spirit Daughter is a platform that empowers people around the world to design their best possible lives using astrology and spirituality as a roadmap. We're so excited to have Jill on the pod and to hear more about her journey and to learn more about our own journey.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for having me.
2 million. That's amazing.
It's pretty surreal.
I bet.
Some days I'm like, okay.
I mean, it's not easy to grow a community like that from the ground up.
it's not, and it's all organic. People are always like, what trick did you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I just got obsessed with Instagram.
So in
basically.
2016, is that when you probably started the Instagram?
That's when I started the Instagram, was
That's
2016.
like not that long ago.
Yeah.
really.
It was August of 2016. And I just started it. I was like reposting quotes I found inspiring. Like I love quotes. Like I'm a quote girl. And when I was like going through a really hard time in my life, I would just like go on Facebook and like look at random quotes, and it just like made me feel better. And so I started just like reposting quotes. And then I started talking about these new moon circles that I was hosting in person, and people like loved it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like people like this, because when I was like in high school, I was super into astrology and crystals, and I was like the weirdo. And I would just like go into the woods and smoke pot and like read astrology charts and play with my crystals. And I was just like your epitome of like the stoner hippie girl, you know, which don't always have to go hand in hand, but they did in my world.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in California?
No, I grew up in Pennsylvania,
Oh, wow,
outside
okay.
of Philly. So I would like go off into the woods and like, and nobody cared. And then I realized that everybody cared. And people were like super into astrology, and my roommate at the time was like 10 years younger than me, and she's like, no, people love this, like just keep talking about it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so I just kept talking about it and like everything I knew and had been doing for years, and it's just people like loved it. And then I came up with the workbooks, which basically packaged what I was doing in person with the new moon circles, because I was seeing like people coming to my new moon circles month after month, and they were coming back with stories like, my life changed this way. My life changed this way. Like, this is giving me like a blueprint for my life, like following like the lunar phases and doing these rituals on the new moon. And it's like, I'm accountable to myself, and I'm realizing what I want. And, you know, all of these things were happening. And I was like, okay, how do we package this? And like my business mind took over. I'm like, how do I scale this?
Absolutely.
Genius. Yeah.
And so I created the workbook so that people everywhere around the world could basically tap into some of the magic I was seeing in person. And so I created the workbooks, and they are worldwide. They're in like over 100 countries. We have customers.
Wow.
Yeah. And we kept like the price point as low as possible. We have digital, so that everybody could really access this information. But then what happened was the workbooks like went viral. And so
Sick.
people started picking them up and then like sharing. And you know how that works on Instagram, just like the
Totally.
network effect. And so, I mean, the shares and it's amazing. I'm so grateful to the support that I got
Totally.
from the community. And it just went like it was like the perfect trajectory of like any product. You know, like all of a sudden, like the influencers picked it up and they started sharing it. And then the celebrities picked it up and they started sharing it. And it was just like all of a sudden, I had 2 million followers.
And I love the workbook idea because we were talking the other day about like there is something about when you have an idea or something that you're focused on that you want, writing it down is like, I don't know. I have just the things that I have like daily written down when I have like kind of been committed to like, I always talk about an older book called Think and Grow Rich. And I've known about it since like the early 90s. And one of the major things is just how when you write things down and put it out there and really, you know, keep doing that over and over, you do manifest things in so many amazing ways.
So many amazing ways.
Yeah.
And you check in, and like the way I work with it is I work with the cycles of the moon. And so the new moon happens every month. And so on the new moon, you check in with yourself. Like, is this what I really want? Is this who I want to become? You know, if I want to become this person, well, then what do I have to change in my life? What do I need to shift? And then you write intentions where you actually visualize like the life you want to live, like you're watching a scene in a movie. And then you feel that it's real. And that's like one of the keys of manifesting your life is knowing that when you create a vision, it already exists. It's like it's already there on the energetic plane. And so like all you have to do then is just hold the vision, like be open to it. You have to release some blocks and barriers. Like I talk a lot about you know, self-worth, and you have to feel worthy of your vision. Like you are not going to be able to manifest anything if you don't inherently feel worthy of that. So I do a lot of like work with blocks and barriers that we have. But once you dissolve those, like you just can step into any reality you want to live. And by checking in every month with the new moon and then working with the full moon to dissolve those blocks, you have this like blueprint for your life.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
It really is.
So I'm just curious. I know you said that as when you were younger, like that you were already into astrology and crystals. Like who introduced you to that? Like how did you get introduced to it?
Right.
And how did you go from like just being interested in it to making like a career out of it?
I think I can't actually like remember when I learned about astrology. I'm a Leo, and I have this theory that people who are Leos are just naturally into astrology.
Okay, what are Leo?
That's Marta.
Oh, Marta's a Leo.
Marta's Leo.
Well, it's the lion. And so when you're a kid, you know, we all like kind of learn about these things or they show up in our world. And so when you're a kid and you're like, oh, I'm a lion. Cool. You know?
I mean,
Yeah.
that is cool.
Yeah.
Versus like if you're a Libra, and I love Libras, but if you're a Libra, you're a scale. And it's like, great, I'm a scale. Awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
Oh yeah.
But like Leo, I don't know a lot about the traits unless I know someone personally like that is that, you know, like I know a lot of Tauruses, Geminis, you know, like Dom's an Aquarius, but unless someone's really close to me.
Yeah. I know a good handful of Leos.
Yeah.
They're all like very
Cabby's a Leo.
passionate people.
They're very passionate.
A lot of like strong emotions about things.
Yeah. They can be quite dramatic.
Very dramatic. Yeah, very dramatic.
I
Yeah.
can say all these things as I'm a Leo.
Yeah, totally. I know. That's so funny.
They're definitely
One of my exes
like-
is a Leo, so I also tend to say some of the more negative traits of the Leo, and I had to catch myself with Marta. I was like, I don't want to offend her, but like, you know, they're very make me and some things like that sometimes too. So
they can be self-centered for sure.
Yeah.
So the way I view it is it's an energy, right? All these signs are an energy. And so every energy has a low side and a high side. And so no matter what sun sign you are, there are going to be higher energies you align with and lower energies. And so our work, because I see everything as work, my background's in psychology. So I'm always like, okay, how can we like do the work to grow? How can we evolve with this energy? And so, you know, if your sun sign is Leo or Taurus or Gemini, like that's kind of like your mission in this lifetime. Like this is your work. This is your work to understand these energies and to embody the higher energies of that sign, and then become aware of the lower energies and release them, do the work you need to understand where they're showing up, how they're showing up. So like taking Leo, for an example, like the lower energies of Leo are like self-centeredness. They're like me. I want to be center stage, all eyes on me. This is the sign of royalty, right? So they're like, I'm the king or queen, and like, you know, I rule everything. But there is like a very heart basis to Leo. So it's very like, they're very loving. They're very loyal. And so those are some of like the higher energies. And so that can show up as like neediness and like wanting approval. And a lot of times that like me can show up as like, do you like me? Do you love me? Like, give me more attention. I need more attention. And really they need to like learn to like really love themselves and have compassion for themselves, and then be okay with being vulnerable. Vulnerability is like a huge piece of being a Leo, and just being vulnerable enough to be seen and to put themselves out there on the stage and say like, I love myself no matter what. And I'm going to contribute my unique abilities, even if people don't like me.
And also, I do feel like that's very Marta. She
Very
has
much.
a lot of insecurities, but she also like does her. And is kind of like, okay, if you don't like me, too bad.
Totally. Yeah.
But her insecurity, she has a lot of those too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just like, to me, it's like the Leos just have a lot of feelings, like good, bad,
Yeah.
positive, negative, just lots of feelings, you know?
Lots. Yeah. Lots.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I knew I was a Leo my whole life. And then I just always ended up in a lot of little shops, like crystal shops. Like I loved crystals. And I would just like wander into them. And I remember this like one crystal shop down the road where I grew up, and I would go in there and I would get this grounding spray. And I like loved it. It was like this essential oil spray. And whenever I was like too high, because I smoked a ton of weed, I didn't want to go home and deal with my mom because I was like 16. I'm like, shit, I gotta go home. I hope I can curse.
Yeah, you can. You can also smoke if we have
Yes,
like.
yes.
I would like spray this grounding spray before I'd like walk in the house, because I'm like, okay, I gotta get it together. You know, I gotta deal with my mom. I gotta have dinner. You know, all that. And anyway, so I would like go into this shop, and I just loved books. I'm like a bookworm. Like I love books. I loved reading tons of books as a kid. I loved writing. I love writing still. So I would just go and like cruise around, and then I'd end up, there'd always be like that cool lady in her like Stevie Nicks outfit, you know, like working at the shop with like the long flowing skirt. And oftentimes like these ladies, like there would be a couple book stores I'd go to frequently, and they'd like hand me books, and they'd just be like, why don't you read this book? Why don't you read that book?
That's cool.
And so that's how I learned astrology. That's how I learned about crystals. That's how I learned about animal medicine cards. There was no internet. This is 1996. So people are like, what online course did you take? And I'm like, there wasn't any, you know?
Well, here's what I know in my brain, and that could be because, I don't know if it's just my brain or the shrooms. But this is she's our IP for a show. I'm looking at my
here we go.
Hope Town girls that run my production company. And what I love about that, it's almost like I feel like those people in the bookstores were kind of taking someone younger and really kind of guiding them, because it's probably not all the time, especially, you know, that people are interested at that age. And like, really, I think that's so cool that it feels like almost a passing on of, and trying to, you know.
It was like, I consider these women like my mentors, you know, and they like handed down information, and, you know, and I always found them, like, even in college, I remember there was this one that I'd go to, and, you know, I would go in, and this like woman would, with her long flowing dress and all that, would come in, and she would hand me, she'd be like, I think you really would like this book, or I think you'd really like this crystal. And I'd be like, what is this crystal? You know, and then she'd like tell me. And so I had this like natural mentorship in a way that I didn't have to like sign up for. It wasn't like a thing, like, and I can't even like explain it.
Yeah, it feels so just like meant to be, like, and, you know, just like that was supposed to be who you were.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so you got introduced to all that like pretty young,
Right.
then, but then you went on and to study neuroscience, right? I have that in my
Right.
notes, and then you said
Yes.
psychology as well.
Yes.
So I would love to hear like the connection between the astrology and the science aspect of it, because I think a lot of people think of astrology as this like voodoo thing.
Right.
So kind of like almost like a religion sometimes, where people are like, well, well, science says this, or
Right.
like, it's almost like people think of it as like a make-believe thing. So it's interesting to me that you did study the science.
I did.
And are knowledgeable about that side of
Yeah.
it. And then I'd just love to hear how like the two kind of played together or not.
Yeah.
And how you went from, being into astrology to then studying the science and then ending up studying astrology.
So I'm this like hippie girl, and my parents are not.
Neither were mine.
Actually, my mom now smokes a ton of weed. Like now, later in life.
So my mom, like, oh my gosh, my mom had never drank. She never, like, they were not hippies in any way.
No.
But like deep in my core, I feel like I just always have kind of been that little bit of, I don't know, like very hippy dippy, rock and roll, earthy, whatever.
Yeah.
But I did not smoke weed until I was like 45.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
42.
It's like my mom.
And like, I'm like obsessed with those stories.
Yeah.
Because like, I could not, like, as much as I was that person, I still was like, the pot thing freaked me out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I
Look at you now.
I know,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But I feel like it opened up an entire world for me.
Yeah, I think my mom too. Like she moved out here. I'm an only child, and so my parents like followed me out here. And so once my mom moved out here, it was like I don't know what happened. And all of a sudden, she's like bring these pot brownies to the holidays, and my husband like eats one. He's like,
That is so cool.
But back then, they were very different. And my mom was like, "You're going to college," and and I was like, "Great, I want to like study photography." And she's like, "No, you're going to do something like that you can." I was the first person in my family to like go to college and graduate from college, and so my mom was like, "You're going to like do something that you can make some money at," And so I chose psychology, and because I was really into psychology too. I was like reading psychology books, and I was just obsessed with consciousness. And I was like super into psychedelics and like Tim Leary and like studying. Like I went to Grateful Dead show in '95. I got grounded for.
Love it.
I was like one of the last ones. It's totally worth it. But I was like super into the Dead, and then I got super into fish, and like this was just like my life. And but yet I was like the straight A student. Like I had straight A's all through every college, high school. And so I was like super into consciousness, and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. Like I'm going to figure out because the first thing you learn about consciousness is you can't study it. You can't define it. Like, it's all subjective reality. And so all of these things became lenses that I studied consciousness through. So I studied it in lab. I studied it in neuroscience. I wanted to like go in and find the area of the brain that was responsible for consciousness. I studied it through smoking tons of pot. I studied it through LSD. I studied it through mushrooms, which I don't like.
I've never done shrooms to trip. I've only done microdose.
Okay.
She's microdosing right
but
now.
I love that you're talking that you've done all of these things.
Yeah. And I did them all like in college, and so, and even some in high school. But it was all like, I was just fascinated by consciousness and expanding consciousness. And I was like reading like tons of different stuff. And, like Robert Anton Wilson, which is like all about mind expansion. And I was reading like, all like anything that I could get from Timothy Leary, like research wise, and like electrocooled acid tests, which is Ken Kesey's journey. And, I was just like so into it. The Celestine prophecy, like that was like my Bible, like just like
That's
all
so
about
cool.
energetics.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, and astrology was part of this lens. And so but I was in school and I was doing research and I was doing really well, in undergrad. I went and worked at UPenn. I studied like treatment research. I studied all kinds of like conditioning and like understanding behavioral patterns and like how everything we do is just like a cue and a response, and like watching like the mice press the levers, like literally, and then I went on and I got into like neurogenetics and I kept getting like deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of neuroscience. And because at the end of the day, like I couldn't study what I wanted to study. And now like looking at what people are doing in that field, I'm like, okay. And I kind of knew it at one point where I was like, I need to study quantum physics and psychology. I need to pair them together. And I remember just making a conscious choice of like, I just don't want to do that in my life.
I could see that for sure. But the one thing that I love about this conversation is I think people are always so freaked out if their kids smoking pot or, like I do feel like now, like people still are just so afraid of the whole pot thing with their kids. But in a way, there is like a higher consciousness and a higher, like, I feel like you're just open to more. And I'm not, and I think it makes learning more interesting and fun. And you know what I mean? Like I do think it opens your mind so much. I have a dear, 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 dear friend who's a huge entertainment lawyer, and his daughter, she smokes weed and loves it. And I mean, she is now like getting her PhD in something crazy, and as a working lawyer, and like she's so successful. Yeah. And I think people are always like kind of with the weed thing, well, it makes you tired and lazy and you don't do anything. That's just not true.
Well, it can be true.
It can.
It depends on the strain.
That's true. Well, and I think maybe it also depends on the person.
It depends on the person.
It doesn't have those effects on me at all. So I've never really understood that, but maybe it can.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have friends that it does that too. So I've definitely witnessed it. But I think it just, it's like a lot of variables, right?
Yeah.
And maybe like a lot of like tests, like trial and error to see like what strain works for you, or, like what time of day you're doing it, or like what kind of mindset you're in could totally change the effect it has. I don't know.
Yeah. It really worked for me. I was like the poster child for legalization. It just worked for me.
It definitely works for her.
I had tons of people who didn't work for. I had a boyfriend it definitely didn't work for.
My husband is nope.
Yeah.
Like zero.
Yeah. I've seen like a lot of people it not work for. So I think it depends on you, your unique chemistry, the strain. Like I think there's a lot of variables that do go into it. But it did work for me. And I was doing great. And I was so I got my master's, I was going to complete a PhD, and I took a break and I went and I lived on my boyfriend at the time's pot farm in Mendo.
That sounds so fun.
Your producers were like, do you have any offense to marijuana smoke?
You're like, no.
But anyway, during that summer, I just got back to who I was. And I remember reading this like fantastic book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. And there's something about it. I'm like watching tomatillos grow. And I was just like, what am I doing? I had my master's. I was at Johns Hopkins. I was studying neurogenetics there. And, but I just wasn't happy. Like, I just wasn't happy with what I was doing. And so I realized that. And so, I left research. I left everything I was doing. And then I had no plan. I had like zero plans in life, like except to like smoke pot.
Most people are way too scared to do that.
It was pretty scary. I definitely had probably what some psychologists would call a mental breakdown. Some hippie people will call it a Kundalini awakening.
It's probably a little of both, to be honest.
Like, a little bit of both. I definitely, like, for 3 months was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, with my life. And, it was definitely scary. And so I started just doing yoga, like, all the time. like twice a day. Like I would go in the morning, I would go in the evening, I would go in the morning, I'd go in the evening. And that became my life, and that grounded me. It really grounded me. And I did feel like I was having like a nervous breakdown because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I don't know what to do. And I was smoking tons of pot, and it was not good because I had nowhere to like outlet the energy. And so I stopped smoking pot for a while.
A lot of people do, yeah.
And so then I started doing yoga, and just a ton of yoga, and that grounded me and it connected me back to my body. And I was just like, okay, like here I am, what do I want to do? And luckily I had the time on my hands to get back to studying. And so not formally, not in a research setting, not in academia in any way, but I took out my astrology books and I took out yoga and I started studying Reiki and Chinese medicine and just like tons of stuff for about like 3 years. I just like studied different modalities, different energy modalities. And I was like, okay, do I want to go be an acupuncturist? Do I want to go do this? Like I can do anything. But I was still very into understanding energy, understanding consciousness, all of that. And so I was still living in Philly, and I moved to Santa Monica then. And I was like, I'm home.
Right. And what made you pick?
When
what
I
made
came
you
to
pick?
California, same thing.
What made you? What like drove that decision of like I'm moving across the country and that's where I need to be?
Well, I had been spending a lot of time in San Francisco.
Okay.
With my ex-boyfriend in the pot farm in Mendo, and so I had been doing a lot of that, and I was just like, I had this calling for SoCal, and I wanted to study at this shiatsu place, and I wanted to study with this woman, and I was doing forest yoga, which Anna Forest had been in Santa Monica, and so there was this like community of people there, and I was just like, I just knew that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah. But did you know anybody here when you moved, or was it kind of like?
No, I knew nobody here. I knew no one at all.
I feel like we have a lot of stoners that call in and like will say like, I kind of want to move somewhere totally different, but I don't know anybody and it's so scary. So like, what advice would you have for that? I know you said you found this community with the yoga. So that's...
I think that when you move somewhere you don't know anybody, it's kind of exciting because it does give you this opening to reinvent yourself.
Totally.
You literally can be anybody. It's like when you start college, right? And you go live in a dorm or something, you know, you can like be anybody you want.
So true.
And not that I like changed entirely, but it was just like, you know, there was things and like habits and I could just like leave behind and I could like choose to focus on what I wanted to focus. And then, you know, I did stick with yoga. And so I did have like something to do and then a way to like connect with people.
We talk about that with them a lot too. I'm always like, you have to get out and make an effort. And whether it's a hobby or something you're interested in, find a class, find somewhere that you connect with people that also are interested in those things.
Right.
Like you have to find your community. And I feel like when you go to a place that, you know, it's something that you love and you meet other people that love the same things.
Totally.
It's such a good way to find your people.
Yeah. So I did find some amazing people. The old Exhale was still there. So I would go to Exhale all the time and I was still like taking courses and I did some teacher trainings with different people. And I did take many courses in shiatsu and anatomy. And I was just like very into that. And so I just met people and just kept meeting people. And I'm always like really grateful for the people that I did meet during that time because I met some amazing people. And I do feel like because I talk a lot about intuition. I feel like my entire journey from the point that I left research was really about my intuition and following my intuition and just being open to signs and like hits and like, I need to go there. I need to go there. I need to talk to that person. And it's always with you. And like, we're all connected anyway through the universal energy. And so if you're, you know, at a yoga class and you see somebody across the room and you're like, that person kind of looks familiar, like go talk to them, like ask them where they're from or just kind of trust that intuition. And you do have to, speaking of vulnerability, you do have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit. And, you know, it's like, we have to allow that to happen. But it really starts with your intuition. Like, I think your intuition can guide you anywhere you need to be.
Yeah.
And you have to follow it. And then you end up, look, I would not be sitting here right now if I did not follow my intuition to Santa Monica.
Oh,
love
same
that.
for, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it is true.
Yeah.
And you
Absolutely.
do have to listen.
You have to trust it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you have to trust yourself.
And sometimes
and
that's really
hard.
scary.
It's really scary.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
really scary. It can be very scary, but you have to like just take the leap and just know that you are always supported and you will find your way and you will find your path. And, you know, the intuition is different than anxiety. It comes from this like grounded place within you. And it's just, it's constant too. Like when you're supposed to do something, it's just this like constant low drum.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I feel like it's a little less scary for me now that I'm older.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't like base, like, I don't like feel like I need other people's like, not even permission, but like validation anymore.
Yeah.
And for so long, I just felt like every decision needed to be validated and whatever. And now I'm like, really, intuition is everything.
Yeah. And it's so efficient.
It is.
Mhm.
It's just like you make a decision, you're done.
Yeah.
You don't have to like
Totally.
weigh this or
Nope.
that or pros and cons or make a
Totally.
list. You know, it's just like that's what's coming through. I'm doing that.
Exactly. That's kind of how I am now.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Tizzle.
Yes.
Let's talk to the stoners about food for a second, because you're the world's worst.
Yes, I am.
It seems impossible to be worse than me at eating and like
Yes.
making food, because I can't and don't, but you're actually worse. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. I don't know if have you ever tried home chef meals?
I have tried home chef meals.
Oh, you have?
I have. And actually, I was failing on my New Year's resolution until Home Chef.
Oh.
Because I was working out and doing all the things, but you guys always get on to me about eating correctly.
Yeah.
And so I will say Home Chef has made it so much easier.
Yeah, so if you guys aren't familiar, Home Chef is a meal kit that comes delivered to your door. It makes it so easy to make meals at home. For somebody like me that's like constantly on the go, like grocery shopping and like making the meal from scratch, like I don't have time to look up recipes. So for me, I love Home Chef because they do most of the work for me. And what's really cool is they also have meals that you can make in 30 minutes or less.
Yes.
Like that is just such a game changer. I think some people, when they think of meal kits, you think like, well, I don't want to eat the same thing every day and I'll get tired of it. But Home Chef actually has over 30 options a week to choose from. And they serve all kinds of dietary needs, so you don't have to worry about what to make ahead of time. Like I said, they just do all the work for you. Plus, not only is it convenient, it's also economical. And Home Chef customers save an average of $86 a month rather than buying groceries.
That's crazy.
Plus, I feel like when I buy groceries, I waste a lot, and
So
I
much.
hate feeling like I'm wasting food. With Home Chef, they give you exactly what you need to make the meal, nothing more, and that way you just have like way less food waste.
Way easier with Home Chef. And the great news is, for a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 18 free meals.
Whoa!
Plus free dessert for life, my favorite, and of course, free shipping on your first box. Go to homechef.com/stoned. That's homechef.com/stoned for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. You heard it right. Dessert for life. homechef.com/stoned. But you must be an active subscriber to get free dessert.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Very important. And you have to eat the meal, not just the dessert, Mother.
I know. Okay. I'm working on it.
Okay, well, I do want to circle back a little bit to the astrology of it all. And I feel like there's like probably a lot of stoners out there that just aren't that familiar with it, but are interested in learning more. So if you're totally new to astrology, how would you recommend someone get started in it? And what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about astrology?
I think that if you want to get started in understanding your astrological chart, you need to first just figure out your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. And there's a million apps out there that can do this for you.
I want to know mine.
Yeah.
What do you? Because I know because I've
sun.
And
You're a Leo rising.
I am.
Yeah.
Somebody told me I'm a Taurus. Yes, Taurus. And then that all three of my other things are Cancer.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
well, hold on.
you're
We'll
Leo
get into
rising.
it. You're
okay.
getting ahead of me here.
Yeah.
Okay, I know because I've been on CoStar and I've done my But what do you have to know in order to figure out your chart? Like
you need your birthday, you need your birth location, and you need your time to be really precise. You don't need your time to know your sun sign.
Okay.
And you kind of need it to know your moon sign, depending on how accurate. Like if you know afternoon or morning, you can kind of figure out your moon sign. But a lot of times I just tell people to do sunrise chart if they don't know their birth time, because there's a lot of people who don't know their birth time, or they don't know the exact. They're like, oh, my mom thinks it was like late morning, you know?
Yeah.
Within a 2-hour window of your birth time is fairly accurate. But why you need to know your birth time is because that determines your rising sign, and your rising sign determines where all your houses are. So you have 12 houses.
And then what about where the place of where you were born? Like, where does that play
That's
into?
just like time zone. So you need to know time zone.
Got
it. And that has to do with the rising as well. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
that might have been what was off with you if somebody said you're like a Cancer rising. Because you have to plug in the place.
I thought I think CoStar, so it told me.
Okay, so we've brought up CoStar a lot. Is that a good app for a beginner to use, or do you have something else you'd recommend?
I mean, I think CoStar's fine. I've been on it a couple times. I like it. I think that it does a lot. And I think that they've added a lot to the app, which is great. I do think that people who are really new might be like, oh my gosh, it's like connecting all my relationships and it's telling me like I'm doing this and that. And so I would just say, like, with charts, you take it one piece at a time.
Yeah, it was overwhelming.
It is a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I think, and it used to not be like they've added features because that's what you do with an app. But you know, I love the site. It's called astro-charts.com, and you just go on it. It's not an app, it's a website, and it's just really clear.
Okay.
And it's good for people who just don't know anything because it's just very clear. And I like CoStar, but it's like charts are complicated. And then when you take like two complicated things and you put them together for like, because everybody's like, oh, I want to look at my relationship, you know, and so they're like plugging in their partners like right away. And like when you take these two complicated things and you put them together, you just get more complicated.
Right.
You know? So it can be hard.
Okay, so I love that. I think that's a great place for people to start. I also think there's like, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of people that want to incorporate more like spirituality into their lives and energy work, if you will, and just more positive energy. So we're going to have you walk us through a morning ritual.
Okay.
Because I do think like starting your day off with this could really like help with your manifestation.
Which Molly does.
She
Molly
does.
does a ritual every morning. She has a little altar. She lights her candles.
Oh, nice.
She sets her intentions.
Yeah.
Like, so I thought we could give the stoners a little morning ritual if they
that.
want to incorporate that into their day.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I always suggest the morning ritual I do every morning because I like it the best. But for me, what I do and what works and what I teach, and we have a manifestation course actually happening right now, that I lead people through this morning ritual. And basically you start by, first of all, I'd like to say, like, first with a morning practice is it's a habit. It's a good habit. And it's one of those things that it can be profoundly effective in your life if you do it every day, and it can be really hard to do every day. So give yourself like time and space to be able to do it. Set yourself up for success. Like when I was first starting my meditation practice and was like committing to it, like I placed my meditation cushion right at my bed so that when I got up in the morning, I literally had a trip over my meditation cushion. And so there is a thing of like setting yourself up for success. So if you want a morning practice and you're serious about like committing to it, you know, it's great to have like an altar, and it's great to have these rituals because everything then like stacks on top of each other. So like your alarm gets up, you get up, you go to the bathroom, you trip over your meditation cushion. You're like, oh, I've got to meditate today. And then you go to your altar and you like light your candle. You do like any kind of ritual you have over there. Maybe like look at your affirmations that you've written on the new moon or like whenever. Start at the year, and these these things stack. They start to stack. And so then like one follows the other. And then you're like primed to like sit down on your cushion, on your meditation cushion. And what I always tell people to do is to first just breathe. Like just sit down and breathe. Just scan your body. Where are you today? How are you feeling? Do you have tension in your shoulders? How did you sleep? Do you have a kink in your neck? Like just kind of feel your body and your energy. And then know that you're like plugging in to the universal energy at this moment. And you can even visualize yourself like you're sitting down, you're like plugging in, you know, and then plug into this energy, feel it, and take it like 3 deep breaths, like 3 very deep breaths, pull the energy in. And then, you know, I like to do a receptive ritual where you open yourself up to receiving energy. And so you say to yourself, I am open to receiving love and beauty. I am open to receiving wealth and abundance. I am open to receiving my intuition. I am open to receiving guidance from the universe. I am open to receiving grace on my path and direction. And you can alter these as much as you want. You can add, you can edit. But the point is that you're opening your body to receiving energy. You're opening to support and you're like plugging in. And then I always do a body scan. I studied Vipassana meditation. It's my preferred method. I love Vipassana. That's that like 10-day silent retreat that you go on. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I've never heard of
Yeah,
that.
I have some friends that have done that.
It's amazing. And so, you know, I usually walk people through like a body scan where they just sit, you set a timer, right? You use a timer. I like to use like a pretty one so it's not like too jarring. Like again, and like this is something you have picked out already, like the night before. You have your meditation cushion on the ground. You have your timer picked up. You like set yourself up for success. And so, you know, you set a timer. You can start with 5 minutes and you build. You know, you do 5 minutes for
Absolutely.
30 days if you want.
Because I was thinking that, like, I feel like people always like just try to go straight in and go like, I'm going to start meditating and I'm going to start, you know, and I'm going to do 30 minutes and it's like, let's try for 5.
Yeah,
like,
try for 5.
You know,
exactly.
let's do 5
5.
consistently, and then
then go to 7.
Yes,
you know, go in small increments. Then go to 11.
Yes, because some people have kids that are getting up and they're trying to rush off to work and do all these things, and like I love that. I say that a lot about setting yourself up for success.
Yeah,
because I feel like a lot of times we just don't. And like it's just like even you know I talk to Dom's kids and now because they're younger than mine, and so I tell them that a lot, you know, and I just think it's such that's such a good lesson in life.
Yeah, because a lot of people will be like, okay, starting tomorrow, I'm meditating for 30 minutes.
Like the New Year's resolution.
And they get up and like, where are you meditating? Yes. Like, what are you doing beforehand? Like, where's your timer? What meditation are you doing in the first place? Exactly. Like, you need to like have all this stuff. I mean, lay out your clothes if you need to, you know, like, it's like have everything set up and then have those like rituals and you do everything in the same order every day. And so it like forms these habits. You know?
I also love, like, I feel like you can, when you actually, I'm such a visual person. And it also, I think, would be, I don't know, there's something about like that being yours and, you know, it can constantly change.
Right.
Because even there's sometimes where I will do a ritual more than others, like on my mom's birthday, like my mom passed away like 3 years ago. So like, that week, I always like have a little candle lit and I'll say good morning to her and just like have that. And I feel like it's become so personal. And I don't know, I just love the whole idea of that. And honestly, it's kind of like, I think once you start doing it, and because I learned this just kind of from walking. Like I started this walking, like I'm going to walk every day for so whatever. And at first, like I made it seem like such a chore, but as I eased into it, I was like, I love it so much now that it is like sacred. Yeah. And I feel like it's the same thing. Like it's your sacred time before everybody needs you. It's like, and I don't know. I just think it's amazing. I'm going to start doing this.
Yeah.
And like you said, if it is just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. And what I instruct people to do is you just follow the sensations of your body. So you just close your eyes and you put all of your attention at the top of the head and you notice like what's happening there. And it's like nothing else matters. Like, what are you feeling? What sensations are you feeling? And then this is the body scan. And then you go down to your face, and then you go down into your body, and you go down into your arms, and you go down into your torso, and you're just noticing sensation without judgment. So you're not judging the sensation at all. You're just observing. So maybe you're observing heat or coolness or numbness or tingly, or you can, and the more and more you do this and you go through your whole body, you go down through your pelvis, you go down through your legs, your feet, your toes, you can start to feel this more subtle layers of energy as you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And you can take 5 minutes to scan the body. You can take an hour to scan the body. You can scan the body 100 times in an hour. And so it's just like, but that gives you something to focus on. Because that's like my number one thing is like people are like, I'm sitting there and all these thoughts are coming in and I don't know what to do. And It's like, you have to have a focus. You need to have a focus. And then after the body scan, I always instruct people I like to write 5 things I need to do for the day and 5 things that I want to do in my life. So, and these are like big visions, like, I want to be on Oprah, or, I want to write a book. And then over time, when you reflect back on those lists, you can kind of see like what you really want, like what keeps showing up on that second list. And on that first list, like, what are you kind of dreading for the day? And like, where maybe do you need to edit your day because you're like writing, I have to do this today. And you're just like, it's like an energy drain. You can kind of feel what's draining your energy. And then I tell people to like write a gratitude list because I'm huge. If you listen to any of my courses, any workbooks, you follow me for any amount of time, you'll hear me talk about gratitude. And I am like a firm believer in gratitude. And you just write what you're grateful for. Even if it's just like, I'm grateful that I'm writing this right now. I'm grateful I gave myself this time. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for this. And like, you really embody the energy, the frequency of gratitude. And that is just such a key to manifestation. And the rest of your day, you're like setting your frequency for the rest of the day. The whole morning practice like sets your frequency. It sets your consciousness for the rest of the day. And so you're in this space of receptivity. You're present with your body. You're grateful. You understand the energy that's flowing through your life. And then as a bonus, you can like write a mantra, or if you have a mantra, maybe something, an affirmation you've written on a new moon practice. You can also pull a card that has a mantra on it. And so, because I'm a huge card pulling person. I love pulling cards, and you just spread them out and you just say, what is the energy I need for today? And you pick your card, and some of them will have a mantra. There's different cards obviously out there. But you say your mantra, and then you have your mantra for the day, and that becomes like your cornerstones, like what you can go back to. Right. So it's like it's 2:00 and your kids are screaming or whatever. And you go, okay, what was my mantra? So it's like, it becomes this like foundation,
That is good.
It can bring you back.
Yeah.
Because the morning practice is all about setting your frequency for the day. Yeah. It's like, so you can control your energy, you can feel in tune, aligned with the universe, and you just like flow through your day better. And you just like remember, but the key is to like set yourself up for success, give yourself time to do it. Make sure you have the time. Like if you have, like when I had kids, I had this like newborn baby, and I'm like, there's like no way I can do my morning practice. Like I kept trying to get up. This is my first son. I kept trying to get up earlier and earlier and earlier. And I'm like, it's 4 a.m. Like I should be sleeping.
Yeah, for real.
I can't do my morning practice first thing in the morning right now. So I was like, okay, I'm going to like wait until his first nap of the day at 9:00 and I'm going to do my morning practice then. So pick a time that like makes sense for you. Don't like force it,
Exactly. Because then it feels like work.
It feels like work, and it just doesn't work. And then it becomes all about like, can I make myself do this?
Exactly. Because then it's just another thing that you have to do.
Thing that you have to do. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. On top of everything else. Yeah. And so, and like with my kids, it's taken me time to get back to my morning practice and to like first thing in the morning and before they wake up. And even with my second, you know, I remember like I had the ritual of he'd cry, I'd like take 3 breaths, I'd get up, I'd put his bottle in the warmer, I'd set the timer for 4 minutes, and sit down on my kitchen floor and I meditate for 4 minutes. And I was like, this is all I have right now.
Yep.
And I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
I've got to wait for this bottle to warm anyway.
Exactly. That's
This is what I'm
amazing.
doing.
And it seems a lot less stressful than sitting there just waiting for 4 minutes for the freaking thing to
I
heat
know.
up so you can make them go back to sleep. You know?
Exactly. So, I mean, kids have definitely like changed my practice and like all of my practices immensely. But, you know, it's one of those things where you have to recognize, like, I want to do this. How can I make it work with my life, you know, my current life? So,
Totally.
yeah. Yeah.
Love
Which,
that.
yeah. Yeah. So that's what you have to do. You're like maneuvering around them.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
yeah.
I want to read our charts.
Me too.
Okay. We're reading charts.
That's what okay, but I have to ask for the one question I wanted to ask. Okay. I was so scared when I first met Dom, my husband,
Okay.
which was not that long ago. But it is crazy because I'm a Taurus and he is an Aquarius. And every single thing that I read said it was like, don't even do it.
So
It is the absolute worst pairing.
I would not say that.
Okay.
And I understand why I understand why people say that. So astrology is geometry, right? And this is like kind of where the science
Love
goes
it.
into
Yep.
it.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about science earlier. Like astrology is geometry. And so when you look at a chart, what you're looking for is angles. And certain angles, aspects are good. Some are not good.
Okay.
I think that anybody, you know, because we're on this spectrum of energies, high and low, anybody can get along with anybody as long as everybody's reaching for the higher energies involved, right? And so when you look at when you plot Aquarius and Taurus on a chart, they form a square aspect. They form a 90-degree angle. And 90-degree angles in astrology are considered quote unquote negative, meaning that they can cause a lot of tension and friction. When I talk about them in regards to relationships and looking at through the lens of astrology, I talk about how it's like a growth edge. So if you form a square aspect with somebody and you're forming that sort of harder or more challenging energy, it's a growth edge. This is an opportunity for you to grow.
The growth I truly have had with him is crazy.
Yeah, and that can happen with square aspect.
And honestly, I had to really grow because I am so like easily offended. Like I think you know what we asked about what is one of my not good traits. Like I feel like I take things so personally, and he is just very blunt.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
there is no warm and fuzzy.
no,
Unless I'm
Aquarius are
upset or
not.
sad or something,
Yeah.
of course he's gonna coddle me for a second. But like I like usually just like I just cannot believe it because I was so used to from my mom. Like I was an only child, I was adopted, and so I was coddled a lot. So I'm kind of like I kind of have needed that, but that's just not who he is. And so
Aquariuses are usually not. Yeah. Yeah. Aquarius is an air sign, right? And the air signs, you're an air sign, Gemini.
And I feel like I really like Aquariuses for that reason.
Yeah. Libras are also an air sign. I feel
I
like
like Libras,
Aquarius is,
too.
even though they're known as the water bearer, are actually like the most air of the air signs because air is the mental realm. And so it's not emotional. And
Yeah.
it's more mental. I think that Geminis are actually quite emotional signs. And I think
Uh-huh.
Libras are also emotional. When looking at an Aquarius, you're hard pressed to find like a really emotional Aquarius, unless
is.
they're like moons and Pisces, because there's other aspects that come in here in the chart.
No, he is not emotional.
But you know, Aquarius is like, it just tends to be very like in the mental, logical realm.
There is no like in between.
Yeah, yeah, and
see,
that's how they
that could
are.
be a problem.
Yeah,
like
with you guys, for
but
sure.
you know what? This is where I've grown. It's like I just feel like instead now of me getting so offended because I respect and love him,
Yeah.
that we have conversations,
Right.
and
That's great.
instead of like getting so upset and heated about it,
Mhm.
and me not taking it personally, just letting him have an opinion. I've never been good at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Taurus is, yeah, they're stubborn, but they like their comfort zones and they like their comfort, They
Doesn't
like
she
their-
ever?
Yeah, they like their comfort. Like every Taurus's house I enter, first of all, a lot of them are like this style, like this kind of style house where they have like very comfortable couches and like the fabric is very comfortable and like
this is all
their bed has like 8 pillows
Oh my
on
gosh,
it.
that's
Like
so
it's like
her.
a very Taurus thing to have like
He is
physical
right.
comfort. Yeah.
Yeah, I need it desperately.
Aquariuses don't.
No.
They'll like literally sleep on one of those like blow up mattresses on the ground with like a sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
these
it's a
are
growth
definitely
edge.
issues. But issues also because I love him that I'm dealing with.
Issues.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah. But it's like, it's a growth edge. And then there's other aspects to look at with the chart, like in relationships. And, so you do want to look at other planets and other positions. So you want to look at the sun, you want to look at the moon, you want to look at Venus. So, I don't know what his moon sign is or his Venus sign is, but, we would look at like your Venus sign compared to his Venus sign. And so there's other pieces. I wouldn't say like if you're new to astrology, go crazy and look at like a 2 charts put together, like first round. But I would say like, look at sun, look at moon, look at Venus and just see how those are going. And what you're looking at is how they like the angles they form, but like really how they interact. So are they the same element, right? Most of us know like the elements, or are they the same air sign? Are they all fire signs? Or, so like that's the first thing to kind of look at. When it's the same element, there's like it's a harmonious aspect. So it means like they get along with each other, right? So a Gemini is going to like have a very harmonious relationship with an Aquarius or a Libra because they're air signs. And so you could also take that and look at your moon sign. Your moon sign is your emotional body. And that's why it's important in a relationship. So that's your emotional body. And that's also like what you need in life. So, and like what fulfills your needs. Okay. And so, and your moon is kind of like your, like the inner, I don't want to say inner child, but there's no logic to it. It's kind of just that like primal emotion. And like that kid having a tantrum in the middle of the store. That's a moon sign.
What is your moon sign?
I don't know.
Let me look. I just had your chart up. Where did it go?
Mine's Taurus.
Yours is Taurus. I just like lost your chart. There it is. You're Cancer moon.
No,
So you're very emotional.
So emotional.
You're like Cancer moons are like the most emotional of the bunch.
She cries a lot.
I'm emotional.
Yeah, and especially with a Taurus sun, you fool people though because you have a Leo rising. So your rising sign. So when you're looking at your placements alone, you want to look at your sun, your moon, your rising, right? These are going to be like the 3 most important things. And so your rising is how you greet people. It's how you dawn on people, right? It's your what was rising, the energy that was rising in the universe when you were born. So it's rising within you. And so
I love it.
You're a Leo rising. So people like meet you at first and they're like, wow, she's like super friendly and extroverted and like so much fun. And then they like get to know you and they're like, wow, she's super stubborn and she cries a lot.
That is so on track. I truly just can't even. It's too good. It's you.
Wild.
Yeah, but that's like I don't want to say the trick, but that's like the thing of the rising sign,
I like the way that you say.
And I don't like to leave the house.
We know.
Cancer, moon, Taurus, sun, they're not going to want to leave the house.
That's
Absolutely
so
not. That's like a homebody recipe for sure. But people meet your Leo rising and they're like, because Leos love the party. And they're like, oh, let me invite you to this party. Why don't you come to that party?
That's me for 5 minutes. Like,
yeah, you can't do small talk. But people think you can.
I say this all the time. I cannot do small talk.
Yeah, no.
I can't.
No, not like the Cancer moons want to go deep. They want to like, if they're going to talk to you, they're like, I want to know your deepest, darkest secrets and like how you feel about it. Yeah.
Like, let's not do the chit chat.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You're so good.
It's true. I'm like, I don't want to chit chat.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, if we're looking at like a relationship, like we were talking, I would like look at your Venus, which is also in Cancer. So,
What is Cancer all about?
Cancer is like it's a very emotional sign. Cancer is like feeling, everybody talks about it. It's the archetype of the crab, but the way to think about it is like it's a crab without a shell.
Ooh.
So like the crab without the shell is just like vulnerable to everything and feels everything.
That's
like
me, Brand.
I know.
Like their feelings are like turned up. Like they just feel everything. But also they're very intuitive. So like with intuition as a feeling, Cancers, Pisces, all the water signs, really, Scorpio, they're all very intuitive. Cancer is very, very intuitive because they feel everything. And so when you feel everything, you also feel your intuition. Emotions are the gateway to your intuition. You can't think your way into your intuition. You have to feel it. And sometimes that means like opening the floodgates, like crying, feeling everything you need to feel. And then all of a sudden your intuition pops out and is like, this is what you should do. And this is where you should go.
That's so me. Yeah. I literally have to have a complete crying breakdown. And then once it's over, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And your Venus is Cancer. So your Venus is like how you love, how you receive love. And so for you in love and relationships, like you need to be held. You need your emotions to be held. You need them to be seen, which in some extent we all do, obviously. But like you need that container. You need somebody that can like be that container for you.
So much. It explains so much.
It explains a lot.
But anyway, you into your charts?
Yeah, so we just did some of your chart and like looking at it, and let's look at Brandi's chart. I know I saw your Scorpio rising, Taurus moon, Gemini sun. So Taurus moon, Taurus sun. That's nice pairing.
See, she always says we don't get along, but we do. We get along great.
Neither one of us like to give in.
Well, no.
Well, yeah, that's the Taurus nature. That's the bull, right?
Yeah.
But you need to think of Taurus as like the peaceful bull, that just like simplifies everything, So Taurus actually encourages us to appreciate simplicity in life. So don't overthink things. Like use your senses, use your intuition, like go with the most efficient, easiest, like right in front of you answer.
I love efficiency.
Me too.
And that's your moon sign. So your Taurus moon, your Taurus sun, those get along really, really well. That's like a nice pairing. And then Scorpio rising, Scorpio risings are always interesting. They just come off really like not nice.
This is her.
No, not right when people meet me though. I'm so nice.
No, you are, but you have that.
Well, no, I know. But what's interesting is like the way she explained the rising about you is like kind of people's first impression, things like that. I actually feel like the Scorpio side of me is what you get to know, which is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So the houses are the arenas that these energies show up in. And so, Tish, your sun is in Taurus in your 10th house. 10th house is career. So you're going to see your core personality with all of its Taurus flavor show up most abundantly in your career and life's work.
I feel like that's true.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of how you start to say like, okay, like, where are these energies in my life?
Less like emotional, I feel like, when it comes to that.
Totally.
And more, I don't know, just like certain of your assertive and like confident.
I'm very confident in, and that like if it's literally what am I most confident about in myself is that. And like for whatever that is, like I mean I don't know, I'm just so confident and making decisions and everything. But for the most of the part of my life I'm really not. I'm very fearful,
it's like always second guessing and stuff.
Second guessing, like that.
But in your career, you're like,
right.
Yeah. Sun in 10th house, like knows what they're doing in career. They like are very decisive.
That's me.
and
Interesting.
move quickly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And that's what you do. You look at the different areas, the houses.
That's cool.
And so there's 3 parts to the chart. There's the planets, the signs, and houses. And so you want to look at your planets. You want to look at what themes them. So the planets are pieces of your personality, right? So Venus is like the heart, right? The moon's your overall emotional body. When you look at Mars, that's your fire, that's your motivation, that's your fight, right? So Mars, like you would look at, okay, like what am I fighting for in this life? What do I want to fight for? How do I motivate myself? What is my motivation like? And then you would look at that in a house and say, okay, where is that motivation going to show up the most for me?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so you can look at the planets as pieces of the personality. You get into Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of expansion. So that's your expansion, your luck, your abundance. A lot of times that will govern finances, but like finances in a good way. Saturn governs finances in a not so good way. Saturn's like your responsibilities, your commitments. That's why Saturn returns like such a big thing. When you turn like around 28, 29, you go through your Saturn return. And that's when Saturn returns to the place it was when you were born. So right now, Saturn's in Pisces. So anybody who had Saturn in Pisces when they were born are going through their Saturn return. And that's when you're like, oh my gosh, there's long-term consequences to everything I do. I need to get it together. And that's why it's such like a coming of age, like the almost 30 crowd, where, you know, it's like, okay, do I want to buy a house? Do I want to get married? Do I want to have kids? Like, do I want to move cities? Do I want to do this? What am I doing with my career? Like, because all of those decisions start to carry more weight during your Saturn
Makes so
return.
much sense.
Like, what
So
do I want to
much.
commit to? And
Sounds
so
a lot like MC. if you
that's
ask
when we
me.
start to see like the current astrology, like what's happening right now, like Saturn's currently in Pisces, how that starts to affect you personally. And so a lot of the work I do is understanding like how the current astrology is affecting us all. And then you can actually look at like your chart, just like you would look at a relationship chart, and compare it to the current astrology and be like, okay, this full moon in Leo is going to affect me this way. Or, you know, we have a massive solar eclipse happening on April 8th in Aries. It's going to be like the talk of the town. Not just this town, but like literally the talk of the country. Cool. And so it's like, okay, how does that affect me? And so you can actually like look at your chart and see how it creates an angle or aspects, however you want to view that word, you know, with that solar eclipse, which is essentially a new moon. So are you creating a square with it? Are you trining with it? Like, is it a harmonious aspect? So cool. Is it going to help you? Is it going to feel like a growth edge? And so that's where, like, for me, like the real art of astrology comes in when you start to understand your signs, and then you start to understand, okay, this is how the current astrology is affecting me.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is where the like horoscopes come into play, I'm guessing.
That's where that's horoscopes, right? So like your horoscope, you flip to like the back of any magazine or scroll online, and like horoscopes, they look at that. They look at the sun. So the sun is currently in Aquarius, or the sun's in Pisces, and they go, okay, well, if your sun sign is Pisces, that's how the sun is like transiting your sign basically when it's in Pisces. So that'll affect you. But if your sun sign is, say, Virgo, the current sun in Pisces is opposing it, because Virgo and Pisces are opposite each other. And so then that's an opposition. That's a 180-degree aspect. And so how would Pisces season affect a Virgo sun? Well, it's opposing them. And so that's going to create a whole other set of energies. And so that's the basis of horoscopes.
Cool.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
That's why like it's so hard to like get into, because it is hard. Like you have to study it and learn it.
Well, yeah, that's why I feel like opening the magazine and reading what's at the back, like they're not going in depth the way you're going in depth to someone's chart. And so it's like you really can only take that for so much, you know.
Well, yeah, and it's mostly based on sun sign, and your chart is so much more. Yeah. I always tell people just like learn little by little, and then I do like understanding like the daily astrology, which is like what I do on the Instagram. I'm like, oh, the moon is in Virgo today. That means that. But if you follow the daily astrology every day, bite by bite, you get an understanding of this. Eventually you're like, oh, I understand what Virgo means.
Gotcha.
Like, oh, it's Mercury retrograde. I understand what that means. And then like once you understand these pieces, you can put them together in any which way you want. It's like in like a natal chart series, like I teach people to like make sentences like, my Saturn, which is my commitments, is themed by Taurus, which is, comfort. So my commitments are themed around comfort, and they're in my 10th house, which is career, so you can like kind of start to make sentences here.
I get that. Yeah.
Almost like translating it.
I love that Taurus is this comfort.
So it's just like pieces. So you start to like learn the energy of like Taurus, because each day you're like, okay, the moon's in Taurus, the sun's in Taurus. You start to learn it bit by bit. And then you begin to look at your overall chart and you're like, oh, I know what Taurus means. Oh, I understand what Saturn means, and so then you can kind of put it together. But it takes time. It takes time. I've been studying my chart for 2 decades and I still look at it and I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
That's so cool, though.
Wow,
I get that
it's
now.
So cool.
But it is a lot to take in, and you don't have to like go totally in either. There's like different levels. It kind of meets you where you are.
Wait, what did you say? Cancer's an air sign?
A water sign.
Water.
Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio are water signs. And so you kind of like, that's the thing. Like you learn the basics, you learn like fire signs, water signs, air signs. So when you're looking at relationships, you can go, oh, like my sun is in this, their sun is in this. Oh, that's the same element. We're 2 fire signs coming together, and you kind of can start to understand it.
I can't wait to go get online and start learning all this.
Jeez, online.
So yeah, you just understand like the little pieces, day by day. And, I always tell people start with your sun, your moon, your rising sign. You want to go a little deeper. You start understanding your Venus, your Mars, your Jupiter, like where your Jupiter's in Aries. So, like that's expansiveness. Aries is about courage, is about situations that cause courage. And some of them are stressful. So stressful situations that cause you to develop courage expand you.
Exactly.
So that's where you're going to feel your expansion. And so some people would shy away from those, and you might initially shy away from them because we don't because what expands us forces us out of our comfort zone and is therefore uncomfortable.
That's why I like that. It's funny when she says like she takes such a positive relation to comfort. I take such a negative relation to comfort because to me, comfort means you're not growing and you're stuck. And I don't ever want to do that.
Yeah.
So I like being pushed outside of my comfort zone. So like hearing you say that, it makes me wonder, is that why I like my Aries friends so much?
Probably.
Because they do that for me.
Yeah, because Aries people, like Aries suns, those are the people that are like when I remember my best friend had a baby around the same time I did. And the baby was like 3 months old. She's an Aries, baby's an Aries. And she's like, I'm getting on a plane and flying to and we're doing like a layover here and a layer. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this like horribly stressful thing?
Yeah.
The 3-month-old,
Totally.
And I was like, right, she's an Aries. Like she's going to grow through this. Because like Aries like love those stressful situations. They love that pressure.
That was an Aries.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, for Tauruses saying, like, yes, I love comfort. That can be great, but it can also be your biggest downfall.
Right.
Staying in comfortable situations way too long because it's comfortable and there is no fear of the unknown.
We know she's talking about rooster tails right about now.
But you do. And
yeah,
then
we
the
cling
second,
to the familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the second that you're out of it, and then honestly, with the whole new situation, there was so much growth getting out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's a survival mechanism. Yeah. It's like we are walking around with these brains that were developed, thousands of years ago. Yeah. And so like familiar meant safe. And so like, even if it's not good for you, it still is familiar and therefore safe.
The unknown is just
scary. The unknown is scary, but it is where most of the growth happens.
Absolutely.
But you just have to, especially with all of your Cancer placements, you have to just take care of yourself. Like when you're going through times of growth that are scary and do make you feel vulnerable, like take care of yourself, have some spa days, take some bubble baths, have extra tea. Like you want to take, you want to comfort
champagne.
or champagne. You want to like really comfort yourself. And so that can like help ease some of that uncomfortableness of growth and stepping outside the comfort zone. Because Taurus is like, their mission is to understand they can step out of the comfort zone because they are their own rock. And that's like a key point for Taurus is to understand. And like, that's part of their evolution this lifetime is that you can always rely on yourself no matter what. So like you are your comfort zone. So when you step out of your comfort zone, you still always have yourself and you still can rely on yourself and you still can figure out anything you need to figure out.
I think I'm just now starting to even like kind of believe that. But like I am starting to believe that, but that was never easy for me to believe at all.
Right.
Like my biggest fear was having to rely, like be alone or on my own. But like when I really think about it, I'm like, who's better than getting you out of this than you? Like, if I'm going to depend on anyone, let's friggin' Tish.
That's how I feel.
You know, so. Yeah.
All right. Well, we could literally sit and talk to you for hours and hours. Like, it's too good, but we do have to wrap up. So for the stoners that want to learn more or know more, where can they find you? Where can they get your workbooks? And if you do this, like if they wanted you to go through their chart, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, do you do that?
I don't do chart readings. No.
If they wanted to do that with somebody, could you recommend anything? If not in the moment, we can post it later.
Yeah. We've been working on this for years of finding somebody who reads charts like Jill. Like I literally gonna have to start like my own training program.
Yeah, you should
to like have because we get this question all the time.
That'd be so cool.
But they can find me at Spirit Daughter website, Instagram. It's all Spirit Daughter, TikTok, everything. It's all Spirit Daughter.
You can buy the workbooks.
And you can buy the workbooks on the site. You can do the courses, dive deeper. I have a natal chart series if you want to really understand the natal chart more. I like to give people tools that like empower them to kind of do the work themselves.
Totally.
And yeah, so you can find it all on the site. There's an astrology and relationships course, which I love.
Nice.
Where I break down how to really understand astrology, and relationships. So
incredible.
Yeah, it's all there.
Thank you so much for coming on.
It's the fun.
And we'll see you next week, stoners.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast has been brought to you by Podcast Nation and Hopetown Entertainment.